Hi everyone, welcome to this new Symphony demo video about Sortie, our new sync generator and RGB encoder. It has a red, green and blue mini jack input expecting 1V signals, and it produces a composite, S-video and component video output. This new version attempts to make the user interface easier with a push button to select the different format, as well as LED indicators to display the selected formats. Additionally, an external sync LED lights up once an external video signal is detected at the rear sync input. So here's the sync input at the back. It's usually connected to an input module like Entrée. Stable or Détail can be used for that as well. The sync output is used to distribute sync to signal generators module like ramp that requires sync signal. Finally, Sortie can be powered through DC barrel or through Eurorack power input. So, why do I need a sync generator and RGB encoder? The sync generator and RGB encoder are at the heart of an analog video synthesis system. To synthesize or generate visuals in the analog world, both the content and synchronization signals need to be generated. The sync signal is the skeleton of the analog video signal. You won't see it. However, it is required for the receiving device to interpret the video content correctly. Without synchronization, the receiving device doesn't have a reference of where or when the frame or line of the frame starts and stops. This is typically what's happening with glitch device like CBP001. As I increase the amplitude of the signal, you can see that the picture starts to bend a little bit to the right. It is because the sync signal is corrupted, so the capture device doesn't know where to start drawing a line of the picture. And if I increase it a lot more, we got some loss of color, and we might end up losing the signal completely at some point. So a device like Sortie will generate these synchronization signals internally and embed them in the composite, S-video and component video signals. Along with the RGB input, it will produce a valid signal for the next device to display correctly, regardless of what happens for the video content. So I will use Cadran just to generate offset, so static voltages. So the 0 volts will be black, and the max value 1 volt will be red. So as I increase the offset, we now have a fully red picture. Of course, if I send the same signal to the green input, we'll get green, and the same signal to the blue input, we'll get blue. And if we're sending the max value to all R, G and B inputs, we get white. And of course, adding red and green we get yellow, adding red and blue we get magenta, adding green and blue we get cyan. Additionally, the sync generated by Sortie will also be made available on a rear RCA socket, so other modules can share the same reference. This is often required on signal generator like HAMP, as it needs a reference of where the frame or line of the picture starts and stops to generate the vertical, horizontal ramps or 2D shapes. So here's how it looks with the HAMP not being synced to Sortie. So as you can see, we got a scrolling mess where we are supposed to have 2D shapes, and as soon as the sync is connected, we got some nice well-centered shape that doesn't scroll up and down. So now that we have a signal generator and the output encoder, let's add some processing module to get a nice patch going. Alright, now we got a slightly more complex setup. So I'll be getting RAMs from HAMP into Cadran to add some modulation. So taking a single ramp, mirror ramp and a shape into Cadran, and let's see how this looks. So cadran will allow to modify the amplitude, so the contrast of each signals. And we can also use it to invert the signal. And here the idea is to use animate, add some modulation. Now we'll use Solaire to further process the shape that are modulated by cadran. Just sum them through Solaire and then check the outputs. And we got something pretty complex already. And why not using a Sortie on the outputs? And we could also patch some feedback on this last channel. So to do so, I took one of the outputs of Sortie and plugged it into cadran, going back. So had those wiggly lines. And then what I like to do is using the matrix mixer, reverse landfill matrix mixer as a output module. But before the output module. So really helps in getting some different color shades. And one thing I like to do is taking this output from Solaire into the negative input of the matrix mixer. Right, we got our synthesis patch. While Sortie allows to generate visuals on its own, it is also possible to process an external video source. To do so, Sortie now needs to be synchronized to this external video signal with a video input module like Entrée, which replaced the ramp we had in the previous patch. So I'll be using video HDMI to component video converter to bring video from the laptop to the system through Entrée. So now plugging the converter to Entrée, and as you can see now, the external synchronization LED lights up and it's set to the external video format. It does automatically detect the format and switch to it accordingly, and then reverts back to the internally set format once no external video signal is present. And so instead of the ramp we were using earlier, we can get our video coming from the computer, actually a still picture, but you get the idea. Let's swap the input to get some different color shade. Bit of feedback. And this is in component, this is the Y signal that carries the sync. So if I disconnect it, Sortie won't be able to know where the external video signal frame starts and stops. So we'll still get a little bit of information through PB and PR, but as you can see now, yeah, there's a picture cannot be displayed because Sortie doesn't have any reference to the external video signal. Bringing it back. Until now we've been using the component outputs and inputs. This was mostly to take advantage of the HD format Sortie can generate. We'll get to the different formats and the different outputs later and what the pros and cons of each. It's also possible to use a composite video input into Entrée. I plug it into the Y input, and as you can see the external sync turns on. The external video has been detected. Entrée cannot decode the composite signal into RGB, unfortunately. Only the black and white information from the composite signal will be available. And let's have a look, sending it to the encoder. And as you can see, the flickering bending we have right now will be more obvious with more colors. It's an issue because the composite video signal at the inputs, it has its own color encoded to it. Sortie also encode its own color. Both are fighting each other at the output. So one solution in Composite is to use a black and white source to avoid this issue, or you can also use a component converter and use only the Y output. Let's do that. And we switch to NTSC now, but yeah, you can see now that using the Y output from the component converter, we don't have any artifacts. We have CBV01 here. I can use it to show that Sortie requires a stable sync to operate properly. Let's see how this goes if I plug my source into CBV before it reaches Entrée. You can see that Sortie is flickering. It won't damage the module to do so, but yeah, as you can see, you don't want to glitch your signal before it reaches the system. Another solution would be to use either use stable to be able to stabilize your glitch before going into the system, or you can use CBV1 to process one of the outputs, which will give something more interesting. So now we are back with a synthesis patch with some action from say keying some shapes, going through Solaire. We'll see the different outputs and frame rate and resolution Sortie supports. The choice of the output format will be mostly dependent of the gear you will be using after the encoder. So if it's an old school CRT TV or video mixer, you may need to work with composite video or even S video. And if you have a higher end converter that can take composite S-video or component outputs and scales it to HDMI, for example, you probably want to use the component as it is a slightly better quality. So right now we're monitoring the composite outputs. The composite output, it's probably the worst in terms of quality you can get. We can compare it with the S-video. I'm using the Retroting 5X as an output converter right now, as it supports composite, S-video, and component. Let's check S-video. So it's probably not super easy to see, but look at the edges where like there's out transition between the colors. You can see those dots along the lines, especially where the green and the red magenta meets. If I switch back to S-video, yeah, you can see it's a little sharper. And now let's see with the component video outputs. The difference in SD isn't really that much that noticeable, but it's still the lines are more well defined. The overall picture is sharper. Let's stay in a component for now, and we'll cycle through the different format. As I said earlier, the output format will mostly be dependent of what you're using afterward. Let's add a little modulation, maybe something slightly faster. The choice of the output will be mostly dependent of the device you have after the encoder. I'd say PAL and NTSC have their own vibe because yeah, you got those like odd edges that aliases, so it's kind of a like retro feeling. PAL and NTSC will be quite close in terms of quality. Of course, it's not the same frame rate, so we're not modulating as fast. I mean, we need to retune the LFO again. Then the 576p is so it's the same resolution as PAL, but it's twice the frame rate, so it will be a little smoother in the modulation. Then 480p is the same same resolution as NTSC, but twice the frame rate, so we got a smoother modulation. Then 720p50, I think the Retroting doesn't like the 720p50. Yeah, the frame isn't full. We get the 720p60. And 720p60, so we got a HD resolution and we got a 16:9 form factor, whereas the previous format were 4:3, so that might be a good choice when doing I don't know, visuals on a screen that is already 16:9 and you don't have the ability to scale or crop. And then we got can't remember which one is supported by the Retroting, but we got 1080i50. Oh yeah, I think same issue than with 720p60, so let's get to 1080i60. We got a 1080 resolution now, so a bigger resolution than the previous formats. However, it only goes up to 30 FPS. Then we got the 1080p 24, which is more like it's the cinematic format with 24 FPS per frame per second. Sorry. Yeah, the Retroting doesn't support it. So once again, you probably choose the format that is supported by the gear you have. if you can and record in component, you have a better quality. But once again, not all devices will have component input. So yeah, choose based on what you have already. I hope this was an interesting video, and see you next time.